All right. Let's get fired up here.
Maximum freedom. Read.
Stay on target.
Maximum freedom.
Stay on target.
Maximum freedom. Read Rothbard.
Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Actual Anarchy podcast, the podcast where we talk about movies from a Rothbardian and Anarcho-Capitalist perspective. And tonight is a special night. We're going to be talking about Ray Kroc, who was the founder of, well, sort of the founder of McDonald's, the famous fast food restaurant chain that's ubiquitous and all over the world. This is the Michael Keaton movie that just came out. But before we get into that, I just want to remind you that you still have time to get in on the Tom Woods Liberty Classroom Black Friday weekend special. He's got the best prices of the year right now, and you can find more at actualanarchy.com/libertyclassroom. And if you do sign up through our affiliate link, we will give you access to the Rothbard repository, which is a searchable database, keyword searchable database of Murray Rothbard lectures. Another bonus we'll throw in is a membership to readitfor.me. Of that, the membership that we're offering is a light membership, which includes the audio and text summaries from the personal development category of books, and that's normally $89.99 per year, and you'll get that for free if you sign up for Tom Woods Liberty Classroom through our link. But the first 5 to get the master level of the Tom Woods Liberty Classroom through our link will also get the readitfor.me annual masterclass membership, which is the world's only masterclass program designed around the world's best business books. Extra bonus, that is normally $49 a month, and so that's called the readitfor.me masterclass. And if you sign up at the master level on the Tom Woods Liberty Classroom, you will get that as a bonus if you're in the first 5 people to sign up on our link. And you can find our link at actualanarchy.com/libertyclassroom.
In the early days of the internet, radical libertarians were scattered, lonely, and faceless. Without direction, they resigned to scour the web, sifting through content providers in a wasteland plagued by YouTube demonetization, Facebook jail, and covert internet censorship. But then, in 2017, the Libertarian Union was formed. Finally, the average Joe libertarian could find a thriving community of independent podcasters and content providers, all in one convenient location. At Libertarian Union, we'll always have the latest news, interviews, discussions, and even movie reviews. With hundreds of episodes and more added all the time, you'll always find something fresh at libertarianunion.com.
So do check that out. I really appreciate all the work that our friends at Libertarian Union have been doing. We have come together. Now there are 9 of us, 9 content providers on the libertarianunion.com. We have a Facebook page, and now we have a secret group. So if you are already a member of the Actual Anarchy cadre, which you can become a member of our cadre at our Patreon page, you will also get access to this secret group on Facebook where you can interact with all 9 different providers and any more that happen to join us, and also their supporting listeners, their audiences. So there's a lot of cross-pollination and opportunities to essentially be in the same digital room as a whole bunch of other libertarians and ANCAPs. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever been physically in a space where there are a bunch of libertarians and ANCAPs, but it is a huge difference than what you're most likely used to. I went to a Mises event in Seattle last year, and I was blown away just being able to pick up a conversation with just about anybody and not be run out of the room where they think you're crazy. I had a similar experience when we went down to Chile. We went down to the Gulch, and I know that kind of fell apart, but the celebration that I was there for was still, 50 or 75 people who were all of the libertarian persuasion. They all wanted to find a better way of living. They wanted to sort of do that permanent traveler thing, which I talk about at the blackn.gold website that I work on, where you create multiple income streams that travel with you so that you can live anywhere in the world and still have an income. and let your dollars take you a little bit further than they would otherwise still in the United States. And it sounds like Robert has joined us for what is going to be episode 52 of the Actual Anarchy podcast, the founder. How you doing, Robert?
What were you telling them?
I was just burning time, making stuff up. Actually, I was also promoting the Tom Woods Liberty Classroom because during the Black Friday weekend, which this episode is going to post on the tail end of that, his deal will still be going on, and our lucky listeners, if they take us up on this offer, will get some extra bonuses if they take our affiliate link to purchase the best prices of the year from the Tom Woods Liberty Classroom.
Ooh, very nice.
That's right, man. We take care of our peeps. We come up with bonuses and different projects all the time. The Rothbard repository is another thing I'm throwing in. And then people who get the master level membership, which is the top dollar one from Tom Woods, will also get a master class membership from Read It For Me, readitfor.me, which is a $50 a month deal. They'll get a one-year plan for that. Only the first 5 people, though, because they only have a handful of those.
So get to it. If you like ads and you like supporting stuff and you like doing good things. How you been, man?
I've been pretty good.
Good? Yeah? You're a little bit late? That's all right.
Yeah, my kids are a little needy, clingy, I guess. I love them. They're great. But they will sometimes say, Dad, please don't go back to work. Oh, can you do your podcast tomorrow? Can you do it in the morning? It's like, honey, you don't understand. Rorbit doesn't get up early.
And they got to go to bed anyway, right?
Oh, yeah. 6 o'clock or 6:30 is usually when we try to get them to go to sleep, and it was kind of a struggle until after 8 tonight, so they might still be awake. My wife just told me to come out here anyway, so here I am. Those
kids, they're the worst, always wanting stuff, needing stuff. Food, shelter. If it's not one thing, it's another.
Always needing the stuff, man. But, they're cool kids. They're awesome. I really enjoy them, and I'm very thankful for them. We just had Thanksgiving, and, you got to be thankful for things.
You did, because for Thanksgiving is for a couple days, isn't it?
Well, we have to speak to the audience from the perspective of when the show releases, right?
So you're just going to fake this whole thing that you already had Thanksgiving? Just pretend that you've already had it?
Yeah, see, now we're breaking that wall. We're breaking the wall, audience. So we are actually recording this the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, but it's going to release the Sunday after Thanksgiving and after Black Friday, when people get up super early in the morning to go get into fistfights in the Walmart parking lot. And we did a really fun show on that last year when we did Fight Club with the Read Rothbard podcast. I might post a link to that down below in our show notes on this one.
So you were trying to lie to the audience, and I'm trying to be honest with the audience. I see how it is.
Well, it's not a lie if the show is going to be released on Sunday.
Yeah, but you didn't say that. You said you already had Thanksgiving.
I will have had Thanksgiving by then.
But
assuming
why don't you tell me about this Thanksgiving? Why don't you tell me about this Thanksgiving you had? Sounds really good.
I'll tell you what it's going to be.
No, just tell me what already happened.
Well, it hasn't happened yet, but the audience doesn't know that until we just told them. So you blew the wall, man. We are actors on a stage.
The whole world's a stage. Yes, Shakespeare.
We merely play it. And, we just play end caps on TV. We're not real end caps.
Speak for yourself, son of a bitch.
We just want all of the benefits that come from being end caps, like the derision, the people thinking you're a conspiracy theorist, nut moron, people thinking that you have a bunch of hate in your heart and you just want to let it out, and that you
don't care about anybody.
Yeah, you hate the poor, you hate everybody. I really want to
all those tangible benefits.
I want those benefits. So I'm going to glom onto something that people hate.
So popular right now. Yeah, you're just doing it because it's cool and hip, and everybody's doing it.
Well, it is like the super trendy thing, right? You got to be on the cutting edge. We're in it before it's cool,
Well, I think it's cool.
I agree. It is cool. I love it.
Oh, okay.
I was telling the audience beforehand, before you chimed in here, that we have our Actual Anarchy Cadre, which is a Facebook group, secret group, where we can interact with other ANCAPs and libertarians, and it's a real big difference from how people would normally interact. If most people on Facebook are statists, and most of the crap that you see posted by them is garbage, and it just makes you mad. And then the same thing when you go and hang out with people. But when you get a chance to go to a libertarian event or an anarchist event, like when we went to the Larkin Rose event, or I went to the Mises Institute event, or down at the Gulch Chili, it is so different being around people that you don't have to like hide your true like what you want to say, like you don't have to couch your terms like very carefully. You don't have to like preface everything with "this might sound crazy, but," which is pretty much like how I started every phrase with my now wife when we first started dating.
Yeah, let your freak flag fly, baby. Go to camp, hang out with all your real buddies.
That's right. And we just started a group for the Libertarian Union. It's called the Libertarian Union Copperheads. And so anyone who's a part of the cadre can also be a part of that. And the idea there is that all 9 of the providers' audiences can all cross-mingle, co-mingle, cross-pollinate, whatever. So we'll just keep growing community, man. It's good stuff.
Yeah, the bed of snakes. It's good times.
That's right. And it's weird for an anarchist of the capitalist variety, libertarian anarchist, like myself, to speak of community, because it almost has that socialist bent to it, But really, we are the primary supporters of voluntary interactions, and that's what real communities are built upon. We want voluntary associations with people who are benefiting from being with others and working with others and trading with others. Well, absolutely. And by definition, at least ex ante, you expect to benefit from every voluntary interaction. I mean, I expect to benefit from this recording this podcast. I mean, ex post, I'm probably going to regret it. But right now, I'm thinking this is good times. Well, so far, so good. And we did talk about that quite a bit with Walter Block on the last episode, which was our Thanksgiving special, talking about Poverty Inc. on actualanarchy.com/51. And I think that was a really, really good episode. That was a fun one. He's a cool guy. Yeah, I like old Doc Block. He's a good dude. I think that it's by the time this has been out, that episode will have been out for a few days, and I think that it might be controversial. Well, yeah, that movie has some champions among the libertarian crowd, and I think we were fair to it. So, I think the movie has its merits. I think there's some areas where it dropped the ball, but I don't think that anybody's going to come out and go, "These fucking morons." Maybe, but I think we maybe more so for the fact that most people don't know about Dr. Block's position more than anything. Yeah, I think his position is maybe a tad harsh initially, and then we got him to become his nickname of Walter Moderate Block. So he toned it down. He dialed it back a little bit by the end. Yeah, a little bit. Although I still think he still says I'm sure he still thinks it's a work of pure evil, but I don't think it's that. Maybe he gets a few things wrong. Maybe it focuses in on some things while ignoring other glaring things, but... Well, this is an interesting line of thought here, because evil, to me, implies intent, like ill intent. And I don't think they had ill intent. I think they just missed some things, like, the Bastiat and the Hazlitt, like we talked about with Dr. Block. But I don't think they, purposefully said, you know what? Screw the broken window fallacy. Screw the petition of the candle makers. We're going to go our own road here. If evil requires intent, and you might be right about that. You might very well be right, but let's just explore this just a tiny little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. Oh, yeah, me too. So then by definition, at least your definition, then you would say the average well-meaning lefty socialist doesn't do evil, right? Oh, man, yeah. See, this isn't going to work, is it? Because if people believe they're doing good, but they're actually doing harm because they're unaware, or what's the right word? I almost want to say stupid, but no, negligent, I guess. It's sort of like that ignorant. Yeah, it's like that Rothbard quote where he says, it's okay to be ignorant. You don't have to know about economics, right? Yeah, it's okay to be ignorant of economics. It's, of course, a very boring and dismal science and has lots of things to learn, but it's totally inappropriate and irresponsible to have a vociferous opinion about policy while remaining in that state of ignorance. Right. So, would you say that that's evil then? Well, I think with that Rothbard quote now, choosing to remain in a state of ignorance and agitating for failed policies that require the use of force, whether they recognize it or not, still seems kind of evil. Yeah, because we used to be in that camp, remember? I think I'm leaning towards evil. If you want to use that, maybe there should be a new word, or maybe it's a word that we're not thinking of, but
Does evil require intent? I mean, certainly evil gets done, and evil can be done by the most well-meaning of people. I mean, take your average collectivist Malthusian ends justify the means person, and you can justify any kind of nightmare scenario. And sure, tons of evil gets done in the name of creating a better society or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you're sort of
Probably
talking
Hitler
about...
didn't believe he was doing something bad or thought he was creating something great, but who knows if he actually thought he was doing evil.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the ends justify the means people realize that they're doing evil to achieve the end that they're desiring. But I think there is something different here in that if somebody is just totally unaware that what they're doing or they don't recognize what they're doing as evil, like your mom, you told her, hey, taxation, if I don't pay the people who demand the money from me, then they're going to send people to my house and shoot me if I don't pay or if I resist. She doesn't see that that is a theft or an aggression when if you break it down to its basics, the building blocks of it, then it clearly is. But she's not evil for that, right?
I think we're painting her as evil. I think we're painting anybody who advocates for violence on peaceful people as evil.
But if they don't understand what it is, because there has been an indoctrination and a propagandization where you got that 1984 newspeak, doublespeak, where up is down, black is white. We've always been at war with East Asia. Slavery is ignorance is strength. Slavery is freedom. War is peace.
You got almost all of them there. Good job. I think the only one you missed was we've never been at war with East Asia.
Oh, but we're always at war. Yeah. Well, you get what I'm saying, right? Like they twist the terms, of course, and so a lot of people can get confused or not see things for what they really are. Like they have a different term than theft. They call it taxation. They have a different term from murder. They call it war. There's a whole list of these things.
What about a person like Madeleine Albright when she says that 500,000 dead kids is, worth it?
Well, she's a ends means person.
For sure. She was looking at the costs and what they gained and versus the number of dead people, and she was like, let's do it.
Right, even though Saddam Hussein was still in power after that, wasn't he? Back in her day?
I think she was talking about that, during Clinton's administration.
Right. So how successful was that? 500,000 dead kids, and who knows how many adults, and the guy that they put in power that they no longer wanted in power was still in power. Right.
So, I mean, we're talking about evil, though. I mean, our definitions of evil, you'd have to say that qualifies.
Oh, yeah. She's definitely evil. But I think she was knowingly, a bunch of dead kids is a obvious on its face evil.
Sure. Whereas advocating for violence against a peaceful person isn't, you think?
Well, I think if they don't make that connection to that's what it really is, because the language is separated from what it really is significantly.
For sure, yeah. Right, yes. I agree. It's a couple levels removed, but we're still adult human beings that are responsible for ourselves and our actions and what we advocate for.
Yeah. Well, let's get into a recent event. Charles Manson died recently, and what I found interesting about him, and I didn't even know this until yesterday, he didn't kill anyone.
Correct.
He got others to kill for him.
Yes, he advocated for murders to be done. And I don't know if he threatened for people to be done. He just kind of convinced them that these murders needed to be done and that they were going to be the first in a series of sort of class warfare, as I understand it, or something, and these rich people needed to die because they were rich and decadent and something like that. I'm not exactly an expert. I know he was listening to Helter Skelter a whole bunch, and who knows what his state of mind was, but he convinced people.
Right. So, I mean, we've talked about this type of thing before. Self-ownership, right?
Sure.
He's not responsible for the actions of others. We've talked about this with the military and the generals and the president, et cetera, whether the just following orders thing is a legitimate excuse. But I can't help but think that this Charlie Manson thing is essentially what the government does.
Except without force?
Well, okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess the government does have a degree of force, especially if you're in the military and you refuse. I mean, let's say you went into it and you didn't realize what you were getting yourself into because you bought the advertising.
Drank Kool-Aid, and then you're like,
Kool-Aid.
Fuck this shit. I don't want any part of this, and you leave, and then you're a deserter, and they chuck you in a cell.
Right. So there's some violence there, and who knows what Manson would have done if people were trying to leave. I don't know. I don't know enough about the story. I just know that he died recently, and I had always thought, never looking into it, that he was some kind of a cult leader, serial killer guy, and he was actually, committing the acts himself.
Oh, so you really didn't pay attention. That's fine. It's fine not to know something. I mean, I'm not an expert on it either, but I remember seeing a couple of news specials or documentaries or something. But yeah, Squeaky Fromme and Sharon Tate and all those people.
Yeah, it was one of those things that
into the mansion, and
I'm
already dead.
It was just one of those things I just, you kind of are aware of who the person is, and he's a crazy murderer guy. Just like when we were growing up, I knew who Donald Trump was for some reason, and I don't know why. It was
he was rich.
Yeah, but
he was a real estate developer.
Yeah, but it was way before any of the reality TV stuff.
But even in the 80s, he was like Trump Tower and Mr. Real Estate Developer and casinos and golf courses and stuff like that.
Right, yeah. I mean, I guess as a kid I probably just knew, rich guy.
Yeah.
Who's sometimes on Rich and Famous maybe with Robin Leach.
Probably. Is that guy still alive? Who knows? Probably not. He was old back in the day.
Yeah. He had a great voice, though. Great voice.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I just liken the Manson stuff to what the government does on a certain level. And
I mean, I don't know the details of the sentencing and whatever, but there does seem to be some sort of a common law type of thing where if you are, some sort of a part of a violent act, even if you were just saying, hey, you guys should go do this, and not doing it yourself, you're kind of lumped in with them, even if you
like an accessory?
Yeah, you're like an accessory or whatever. I don't know why he got, the level of punishment that the other people did. I think everybody got like life in prison, except for the ones that cooperated or something. I don't know. But I know that like the ladies, I'm not sure if both of the ladies or at least one of them is still in jail. But most of them, I think, are still in jail. I could be wrong. I'm just talking out my ass right now. But I think it is an interesting thing to talk about. I don't know what it would be like in an ANCAP society, but I would hope that people would have more respect for self-ownership and, private property rights. And, I could tell you today, you should go kill so-and-so. And, it's up to you whether you actually do that or not. I mean, if I told you to go jump off a bridge, would you? I mean, it's the same old, it's a classic, self-ownership parenting. And it just gets forgotten, I guess, as you get older. Just because your friend jumps off a thing or someone tells you to do a thing doesn't mean you have to do it. But, I don't know. Courts still find in favor of those people. I mean, there's that girl that we talked about a couple times so far.
Yeah, she was telling
messages to that guy.
Yeah, telling him to off himself, like, tonight's the night.
Do it. Get back in the car. I mean, yeah, she's a shitty person, of course, but she's not guilty of murder.
Yeah. Anyway, interesting stuff, and I don't mean to, like, sidetrack us. We're here to talk about Founder, or The Founder, right? That's the official name.
It's one of those. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
we're going to talk about it.
We're going to talk about it on the 52nd episode of the actual Anarchy podcast. Is there anything else, any other house cleaning that we should do? We talked about the Tom Woods Liberty Classroom. You can still get in on that, and we've got special bonuses there. If you still got some holiday shopping, Cyber Monday's coming up. Smash our Amazon links, and you won't pay any more, but we'll get a little bit of a kickback from that. Got that Libertarian Union stuff, which is really cool, the special groups. Gosh, anything else? Do we have any awesome stuff coming up?
Yeah, well, I've got the whole, webcomic coming up with the designs and that sort of thing, but I got to finish the website and get that all done, and it's going to be a big whole production, and I have once again underestimated how much work is involved, so it'll take a little bit. I don't know if I'll be ready in time for, the big shopping push, probably not. But I should be good for 2018.
All right, mark your calendars, people. One other thing I want to mention is we were just on Don't Waste Your Hate with the guys from Don't Waste Your Hate, oddly enough. Allow myself to introduce myself. That's Jeff and Tony over there. And we were a guest along with Patrick McFarland from the Liberty Weekly podcast. And we were talking about, just kind of introducing anarchy and anarcho-capitalism to their audience. And I think that was a pretty fun conversation despite all of the technical difficulties. We spent probably a good 2 hours just trying to get a solid connection figured out. And I finally broke down to calling in from a cell phone. You call me from a cell phone? Prank caller.
Yeah, looking back on it, you probably didn't need to do that, but it worked out all right. I think your audio quality was probably the worst of everybody, other than myself. I mean, I don't know what I sound like. So, but yeah, it was a fun discussion. Check it out if you're interested.
Yeah, Don't Waste Your Hate. .com/17, I think. And they're really good guys. I'd suggest you support them. Subscribe to them. If you like their stuff, give them a rating or review. And heck, give us a rating or review. We could use a few more of those.
Yeah, buddy.
There was one other thing I wanted to mention. What is it? Part of the technical difficulties, I think, was because of how my internet is coming out to the office/studio over the power line.
Yeah.
So I used some of the funds that have come in from the Patreon and
Nice.
bought an upgrade, baby. 2 Ds for a double dose of the pimpin'. We're going from a 500 megabit per second connection to a 1750 megabit connection. And I'm hoping that will increase my my internet speeds out here. For whatever reason, I used to get about 30 out here, and then the last couple of times we've been testing it, it's been like in the single digits, and so that's a bit unfortunate. So when that new piece of equipment gets here, along with the new mixer that I just got today, still in the box, we should be hitting some pretty significant upgrades in our audio quality and our ability to include video and other things in the shows. So look out for that, everyone.
Yeah, and we also might at some point do a true recording where I record my voice over here and you record your voice over there directly, and then we just merge the two at the end, and it'll be nice and clean. She's clean, Bob.
Yeah, inside joke. That is one of the things that has kind of come up a fair amount when we get new listeners. They're like, hey, man, we really like your content, but your audio, man, it's no good. And I'm like, man, we've been fighting this thing for so much. We're on our 5th mic. We've got audio conditioning paneling in the studio now, and all this stuff, and it's still kind of bothering people. Though Patrick McFarlane was telling me that he kind of is nostalgic for it now. He's like, oh yeah, whenever I hear you guys come on, it just gives me that warm fuzzy, there's their kind of dopey, cheap audio quality.
They're talking through some tin cans. It just brings back the nostalgia memories. The member berries.
Yeah, penny candy and a quarter to make a phone call, that kind of stuff.
The good old days, back when people didn't have technology.
15-cent hamburgers.
Yeah, baby.
That's right. Let's get into 15-cent hamburgers and talk about the founder. And I've got the Google description if you're ready, Robert.
I'm ready.
All righty, here we go.
Here we go.
The founder came out last year, 2016, a drama/history about 2 hours long. 7.2 on IMDb and 83% Rotten Tomatoes, 84% of the Google users, so pretty consistent there. And the description says, the true story of how Ray Kroc, played by Michael Keaton, a struggling salesman from Illinois, met Mac and Dick McDonald, played by John Carroll Lynch and Nick Offerman. And I'm going to call him Ron Swanson throughout this, by the way.
Please do.
Who were running a burger operation in 1950 Southern California. Kroc was impressed by the brothers' speedy system of making the food and saw franchise potential. Kroc soon maneuvers himself into a position to be able to pull the company from the brothers and create a multi-billion-dollar empire. Came out December 16th of last year. Director John Lee Hancock, budget of $25 million, and I don't see it noted here, but I believe it made about that much money as well. So kind of a break-even type deal. What do you think of the Google description so far, Robert?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to give away too much, and I can't really quibble too much. I thought Keaton was really good in this movie. I think he's really good in general. He's just a strong actor. But Offerman, can he not act, or is he just Ron Swanson all the time?
Yeah, that's just him, man.
Yeah, he's just like, I'm just going to read the lines, and this is me. It's fine. But
yeah, he doesn't have what we call
have a lot of range.
Yeah, what we call in the biz the range. He doesn't have that.
Yeah, it's like I play one character. It's called Ron Swanson. Hope you like it, and I'll be in your movie. It's like, okay.
I happen to like Ron Swanson, so it doesn't bother me too much. And he wasn't as overtly, the caricature of a libertarian in it, but he was kind of the red-blooded Republican. Everything needs to be in order and just so very mechanically inclined, very engineering minded. Yeah,
I mean his character was totally different than the Ron Swanson, but his delivery of his lines was almost identical. So all you would need to do is change to him mugging to the camera once or twice and then say a joke, and you're like, it's Ron.
Yeah, hold up an Etch-a-Sketch or a light bright and says poop on it.
I mean, I like him. I mean, he's a liberal lefty kind of a wacko dude, but he's fun.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I listened to his, I guess his comedy special that came out last year, and I was kind of expecting more of a Ron Swanson. Like I was sort of hoping that character would rub off on the man, but no.
Yeah, not so much.
That's too bad. Anyway,
it is too bad. Well, I mean that show was written by liberal lefty guys and their understanding of what a libertarian is. I mean, Ron Swanson has. If you watch the whole series, there are quite a few contradictions in the character himself, which is fine. You have a complex character, but it's never really addressed. When they have contradictions is when you actually understand what a libertarian would be, and if you write contradictions into the character, that's fine. But then have them deal with those contradictions, fleshing out that character and how he feels about those things. But I'm asking too much of a sitcom. It's fine.
Right. Well, the other thing I'm sure is that they probably don't even recognize that the contradictions are there.
Sure, that's exactly right. The writers wouldn't have any idea. I mean, you're talking about what's her name from Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, Amy Poehler, is that right?
That's right. Yeah, and she's one of the head writers, along with I'm sure a bunch of her friends and ex-SNL people and stuff. So, I can't imagine they would have a full understanding of what libertarianism is.
Right. Well, very few people do, even libertarians.
Apparently, it's one big mystery. So
it doesn't seem that complicated to me, but we've been spending a lot of time trying to figure it out ourselves. So
yeah. So anyway, let's talk about this movie, Daniel. The movie starts off. He's this kind of unsuccessful salesman. He's kind of reminds me of some people I know, where he will have an idea for a thing to do, and maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. This one doesn't work, but he's trying it, and he puts all his efforts into it.
Yeah.
And now he's currently doing this shake thing, and he's like, man, this is okay, it's kind of working. But then he runs into this McDonald's, and he's like, this is amazing. But what I wanted to ask you about was at the very beginning, he gives this speech. It's a sales pitch when he's selling these things. And he's like, if you increase the supply, you increase the demand. Because if the customer knows that when he orders it'll be ready to go right away or within 30 seconds as opposed to like 5 minutes or something like that. So that'll increase your demand. And he doesn't get a whole lot of sales because of this sales pitch. And I don't think it would really convince me either. The whole idea of supply side economics or whatever. Can we talk about the flaws of that?
Yeah, we can. Though I think that there is something to what he was saying in that it's not just a monetary cost in anything, right? You're changing one state of your being into another state. Like you're trying to satisfy a want or desire or relieve a pain or a hunger or whatever, and that's what motivates you to act. So you expect that you'll be better off when you do something, and you're trading, like I said, not only money but also the time that it takes to acquire the satisfaction, right? And so if someone knows, hey, I'm going to order a milkshake and it's going to take 20 minutes, maybe I don't need a milkshake so bad.
Right.
But if they know...
But if you go to this place and you go, hey, these guys will have a milkshake ready for you in like 20 seconds, it's great, then maybe they'll order more. It's true. But my point being, if you just increase the supply of a thing without reducing the cost of it, you're not necessarily all of a sudden going to have a bunch of people want that thing. I mean, if I create, 1 million pet rocks and they're all ready to go and here you can have one for just $10, it doesn't mean that people are going to all of a sudden want a bunch of pet rocks.
Well, that's where I was trying to make that clarification or that distinction, that it's not just the monetary cost, it's also the acquiring it, both the time and effort. And so even though it might still be a $5 shake, I got a taste of a $5 shake, by the way, because it's now a 30-second or a 1-minute wait versus a 10 or 15 or 20-minute wait, the cost is no longer the same as far as the money goes. True.
It is now you're spending less time to get that thing, and that is significant. Absolutely.
Right.
As the movie proved, when he gets to the McDonald's and people are ordering and like the food is ready right away.
Right, and this whole mixer thing, this whole point of this in the film is to foreshadow that this guy is aware of this concept, so that when he sees the Speedy system in action, and he's like blown away by his first experience in ordering at the McDonald's in San Bernardino, that's where the light clicks, right? And he's been in 1,000 kitchens. Like, this guy's been around the block, and like you had said, he's a guy who's a dreamer and a chaser, and he throws his whole body and his whole effort into things, to the chagrin of his wife and to his friends are like,
buddies.
What crazy scheme is it this time? And
right.
I know who you're talking about, and I think maybe you're also talking about me a little bit.
Sure. Yes,
but I think there's another person as well.
Oh, there are multiple people. I'm not just talking about one or two people here. I'm talking also about myself. There's a certain amount of dreamer in me as well. I mean, I'm not just working some 9-to-5er, schlepping some crap. I'm trying to do something here, and who knows if it'll turn out or not.
And part of my takeaway from the movie and just my general philosophy in life is that all of these things that I'm sort of chasing, I'm learning from, and I'm acquiring knowledge and experience, and also the vision to see when something truly is good or not. It's something you kind of practice and hone over time. An example, and you were actually part of this, is when my wife and I found our cabin, you came with us.
True story.
And we knew upon seeing it, like, this is an amazing deal. It's an amazing cabin. It's awesome. The price is so crazy low. But we only knew that because we had looked at dozens of houses for years. And anything else that we had seen anywhere near this price range was a complete, like, teardown type situation, So to be able to recognize that this was that diamond in the rough, you need to know what the rough looks like and what diamonds look like.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, if that had been the first cabin you would want to, you probably wouldn't have just jumped right on it without any kind of reference.
Yeah, we would have had that hesitation, and that would have cost us this place. Like, this was going to go the day that we found it, right? There were other people coming to look at it, and we knew we had to jump on it. So we lucked out. We definitely lucked out. But I think that's what Ray Kroc did. He had been around so much, and he knew the frustrations that consumers were having, and he knew there was a better way. He just didn't know what it was, and he stumbled upon it and was able to recognize it. And that's an amazing entrepreneurial trait that is not something that not everyone's going to have that,
Oh, no kidding. I mean, I know it's a speculator market, but I remember I was just talking to somebody the other day about how when I was thinking about getting into Bitcoin, it was like $50 a coin or something like that. And now it's like $8,200 a coin. It's, some people have that gift for recognizing opportunity, and other people are maybe more reticent, more hesitant, and, not really sure, doesn't want to commit until they know more, until it knows better. But by the time you know more or know better, it's no longer that great opportunity anymore. Kroc was in the right place at the right time, it seemed to me, where he had that right level of experience, and when he saw this new revolutionary thing, he was like the first person to see it and recognize it for what it was, and he was also the right person to take it nationally and turn it into a global thing. So I think he had the right drive and the right mindset, but he also happened to have the right experience, like you're saying.
Yeah, and he was a little bit gruff. He was kind of a dick, he's
no angel. That's the whole point. I don't know if this movie is really painting him in the greatest of light. It doesn't seem like it was made, by McDonald's Incorporated. More just like a human portrait of the guy. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and it just kind of showed that he was such a driven guy who wanted to achieve success, and he knew that the levels he had achieved previously weren't enough to satisfy him. He had that conversation with his wife. She's like, when is it going to be enough? And he's like, honestly, probably never.
Yeah, and that conversation really surprised me, because I've never known, and I hate to be like a sexist whatever, but I've personally never known a woman to be like, man, I don't like my driven entrepreneurial, or at least ambitious husband or whatever. Like, everybody's looking for an ambitious person that I've seen. I've never seen anybody to go, man, I just wish you weren't so ambitious. I mean, maybe she's upset about some other things, like she wants to spend more time with him, she wants him to take her out more, blah, 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 that sort of thing. But, yeah, there's a difference between a guy that puts in, a lot of time at the office, maybe, to just that's just how much it takes, and you're not necessarily moving up, versus a guy who's spending a lot of time working because he has a goal in mind. Am I making sense? I mean,
Yeah, a bit. I mean, I've seen, and almost, I don't want to say I've totally experienced this, but it does affect my relationship with my wife in that I work more than she would like. She wants me to spend more time with the kids. And I know of people who work so much that they spend, like even less time with their significant others, and it resulted in separations and things like that, So there are people who are out there that are just so driven to accomplish something or make their project complete that they let a lot of the social stuff kind of take the back burner, and then they pay that cost. And it's unfortunate. I'm trying to find a balance myself.
Yeah, it's a different thing to balance. I don't know, maybe people don't say they want one thing and actually want another, but I don't know. If you ever go on these, dating websites, it's always, I want somebody who's ambitious. But you know what that means is that means they're going to be working all the time. So maybe you just want your cake and eat it too. I mean, that's probably the case with everybody. I want you to be there for me all the time and to be out there making all kinds of money and taking care of the kids and this and that and help me with the housework and everything. Well, it's great to want things.
Yep. Well, as long as it's driving you towards being productive and trying to achieve it, I mean, that's the whole point of human action. But if you're waiting with want, with your hand out, with that old saying, hold one hand out behind a cow and one hand out for something else and see which one fills up faster. And, obviously the one with the cow shit fills up faster. I forget exactly how that goes.
Yeah, you butchered that one, but we know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I totally butcher. I am the butcher.
Yep.
Anyway, I wanted to mention to you, Robert, that I have a copious amount of notes for this thing. And I've done these notes in a notebook from the future, an item called a rocket book, Everlast, and these are available on Amazon. Click on our Amazon link. But what it is, it's a reusable polyester paper that you can wash. And so you can fill up the notebook or just fill out a page, and you can scan it into your phone, into an app, and there's these little indicators that you can tell it, okay, if this one is marked, send it to my wife as a text. If this is marked, put it on my Google Drive. If this is marked, save it in my Evernote, etc. You can assign all these things. So I have one of these things, and their first version, you had to microwave to erase the ink. Needless to say, that one didn't probably do as well. This one, you just have to let the ink dry for like 10 or 15 seconds after you write on it, and then it's bonded, and then you can use a damp cloth to erase it.
Nice. So it's like a notebook? I mean, it feels like paper, and you use a piece of paper, pencil on it, or what? Yeah, you use a pen. It's like a special, it's a real pen, normal pen, but it has to be a special variety of this pen. It's called a friction. All right. Yeah. But you use normal ink? Yeah,
it's a Pilot friction pen, and apparently whatever the formulation is for this type of pen, it bonds with the paper but then comes off with water. Now, the one problem is because of the 10 or 15 second time to bonding, this thing doesn't work well for left-handed people.
Yeah, I used to smear all the time trying to draw or write in ink as a kid in class. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah, so that's the one thing I would say is this is for right-handed people. I mean, it's another one of the benefits, not only the longer life and the better looks and all the rest, but...
and the arrogance.
And the arrogance, But, man, let's get back to talking about this movie. But if you're right-handed and want to try out the paper of the future, check it out, Rocket Book.
So this book discriminates against lefties, literally.
Literally.
All right. So I thought it was interesting that the very first McDonald's, on their big fat billboard out front, right next to the hamburgers for 15 cents, they go, U.S. government inspected beef or something like that. So I would be, I'd be loath to support that, or at least not be super confident.
Yeah, that really stood out to me as well.
Yeah.
I got to think that goes back to the whole Upton Sinclair and the Jungle, where that was probably by that time still a staple of the public education system, and so having the USDA inspected beef was an important signal to consumers, even though it really works backwards from that. If you assume that there's a health inspection and a government inspector, then you yourself as a consumer are going to have your guard down versus a free market approach where you need to be satisfied for your own consumption that something is safe to eat or not.
Absolutely. And there's, it's nice to have signals in the market, for sure. Hey, we do this, this, and this, and you as a consumer would be interested in this because this is something that I'd be interested in. But I just want to reiterate, nobody who's making food is trying to poison their customers. They want to create the highest quality for the cheapest price product because they're in the competition for your dollars. And they also don't want to be poisoning their neighbors and their friends and whatnot. So reputation matters big time, not only in the food business and in any business. If word got around that you're making people sick with your burgers, you're not going to last very long. But to your point, the more people are aware of the horrific nature and the piss-poor service that government provides, I don't think the USDA stamp is going to – wouldn't impress me. That's for sure. I would be far more interested in word of mouth or any other kind of. I like the idea of the big glass windows. I thought that was a great thing that you could look in and see your food being made. That's something that's used by all kinds of places these days. I think Krispy Kreme does it, and other places. And that's a nice. You can look in and you can see how clean that kitchen is. You can see how quickly and how long that, if that food's been sitting out or whatever. I think those are nice innovations on their part.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. And that's a way of letting the consumers know that this product is safe for them, or as safe as it can be, that the kitchen is very clean and it's very efficient, it's well laid out, it's very quick, and all the rest. And one more point on the government health inspectors is not only does it give a false assurance to a consumer, but it also gives a false signal to the producers and lets them sort of off the hook in a way where they don't need to be as cautious with the materials coming in. It's got this stamp on it.
Yeah, and how much does that stamp cost? You just got to take some inspector out to dinner. These, who knows what the inspectors aren't in competition with anybody, really. So how well are they really doing their job? Are they even doing their job? How many in 1,000 are they actually inspecting? 1, 0? How often do they come in and check your facilities? As long as you're getting that stamp, I guess it doesn't matter, right? So, yeah.
Right.
Any number of reasons why this is terrible.
And they also have a built-in fail forward, the health inspector, any bureaucratic process, where if they fail, they can just say, oh, we're understaffed. We don't have a big enough budget. We weren't able to inspect that place in the last year and a half because we need more money.
Right. There's never any accountability.
Right.
There's no people get sick. Do they start banging on the USDA or something like that? Do they? I don't think they do.
No. The restaurant gets the fallback or is the fall guy.
Right.
So it's weird because the restaurant or the grocery store or the food producer, because you always hear about these recalls, right? Sure. Salmonella, et cetera. It's always the producer that's to blame or the restaurant that's to blame. It's not the failure of the inspectors. So they get the best of both worlds. They get a no feedback mechanism for the quality of their services that they provide. They give false assurances to the consumer and to the producer. And then if they do fail, they get a justification for bigger budgets, bigger staff, and they get a fall guy to take the blame for it. It's a beautiful system.
Yeah, if anything, they have an incentive to do a shitty job because then they get to, it's not only it's job security, and they would get a bigger budget next year. Maybe they'll get a higher salary or get more workers or any number of things that they might want. It's a perverse incentive scheme, and the market would solve it.
Right, and I think Mises talks about this in his book, Bureaucracy, so I'll be sure to add a link to that book down below. Mises is an acquired read because he is super intelligent and uses very large and very German words, so it can be very dense reading, but he makes very, very insightful analysis of this type of stuff.
Definitely. Check them out.
So let's get back to this movie.
Next? Okay.
All right, so the McBrothers, the Ron Swanson and the, what do we want to call the other guy?
Big and tall.
Big and tall, Mac. They were very smart guys, but very specifically smart. They were specifically smart in the area of efficiency and engineering, like I was alluding to before, to where they were going to maximize the operational capability of their restaurant.
Yes.
But that is a very specialized
skill set,
and in the division of labor, I mean, they couldn't really devote much of their efforts to also specializing in how to run a franchise. And so that's
right.
where you get the benefits of the division of labor coming along when this guy, Ray Kroc, comes in and he sees how this thing operates, and he knows it's so much better than everything else he's ever seen because, like I said before, he's been in 1,000 different restaurants, and they show this in the early part of the film where he's making his milkshake sales calls, the chicken egg stuff. He's ordering stuff, and it's the wrong order comes, and it takes a half an hour to get to him, and there's a bunch of hooligans that hang out there, and the place is dirty, or the place is empty, or whatever. It's all these problems. And when he comes upon the McDonald's restaurant, he's like, holy crap, they've got a line. It's super fast. They get huge, customer base. It's good quality food at the time, and I think now McDonald's isn't necessarily known for quality food. At least in my growing up, it's always been one of those things like it's junk food.
Yes, and I think it's still retained that moniker, at least for me. I mean, I can't imagine what the kids these days are thinking about it, but I can't imagine. I mean, they've added all kinds of things to their menu, from the Filet-O-Fish to salads to breakfast and all that sort of thing, but it's still, people know it's fast and it's fairly cheap, but it's not necessarily the best or really necessarily healthy.
Yeah, so I guess the bar was much lower back in the 1950s, right? Or perhaps they were just that much better than what else was on offer.
Mm-hmm. That's especially, in the way that the movie portrays it. That if you wanted some kind of dining out experience as opposed to having a sit-down restaurant, if you wanted like fast food, that meant sitting in your car, waiting for the car hop to come out on their roller skates, like the movie shows. And I'm sure some places did it a little bit better than others, and maybe they were exaggerating a little bit, but I don't think they were wrong about all of it. And that's for sure. The way they went to paper was huge, from all the dishes and the baskets and that sort of thing. And it just cuts down on all kinds of stuff. The way that they organize their labor force and the way that they organize their kitchen was huge. I mean, each person was so efficient in what they did and their timing. That was revolutionary. And then they didn't waste, personnel having to go out and take orders and get it wrong or get it right, or roller skating around all over the place. You just made them come to you and had some food ready for you. I mean, there's a place in Seattle that does that exact thing. It's called Dick's. And it's essentially like going to a 1950s San Bernardino McDonald's. You walk up, there's a line, especially at lunchtime. You walk up, you order, you get a greasy burger and the greasy fries.
And hand-beaten shake.
Milkshake. And that's it. That's all you can order there. But it hasn't changed probably in 30 or 40 years, or maybe 50 years, who knows. But they're still in business. There's still a demand for that service there. So, McDonald's has changed and Dick's hasn't. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and Dick's is, a very small regional player, and McDonald's is thousands of restaurants all over the world. So pretty significant difference. One sort of, you step back in the DeLorean and you go back in time, or you get in the DeLorean where we don't need roads anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's another movie we should do at some point, the Back to the Future.
Yeah, it's a pretty good series. So I just wanted to mention that the boys, they had a different skill set for sure, but they also had an artistic vision that was preventing them from really turning it into a franchise operation. They wanted absolute control over, his vision. They wanted it to be exactly, each place to be exactly the same, what they had created. And the movie was all about where Kroc wanted to make changes, or the franchisee wanted to make changes, and the brothers were absolutely against it. And in fact, they were even balking, or at least going slow and trying to make sure it was all right, when he wanted to add a basement in a place in the Midwest where you got tornado country, where you have to have a basement so you can escape tornadoes.
Yeah, and this is all a result of the contract when he finally got them to agree to try a franchise again with him because they had tried it themselves and failed because they couldn't get the people running the franchises to actually fall in line, and they started going off menu and all of these other complications. But yeah, this contract did give the McDonald's brothers an astounding amount of control, and Kroc was just signing it. He's like, whatever, like I agree, because he wanted to get this thing off the ground. Like he knew it was so good, he didn't want to get anything in the way of getting this thing off the ground.
Right, and maybe if he had been more careful and thought it through a little more and had some other people look at it, he might have had a different take and been able to negotiate it a little bit better. But yeah, he was in a hurry, he was excited, and he just wanted to get started. Because later on it becomes very clear that they are holding him back. There's one big dispute after another between them, but I would say the biggest, which is kind of, well, I don't know if it's the biggest, but the whole Insta-Shake fiasco, and where Kroc was like, this is going to save a whole bunch of people a whole bunch of money. And they're like, yeah, but we don't care. We want it. It's called a milkshake, and it's going to be a milkshake for as long as it's a McDonald's. And what did you end up thinking about that? Because he ends up just doing it. And that kind of serves as the impetus for him just buying them out when he's eventually, it's later on down the road when he's actually got a bunch of capital and he can afford to do it. But eventually he's just like, you know what, you guys are holding me back. This is not going to work out. I need to be able to innovate. And they were very much, and it's weird that they were such innovators, but they weren't innovators, they were only innovators in certain ways. They still had certain levels of, I don't know if you want to say quality, but they had a certain vision for the business that didn't involve, things like putting Coca-Cola. Like they were okay with displaying the U.S. government, but they weren't okay with Coca-Cola being on the signage.
Yeah, like real small.
That was crass commercialism or whatever.
Yeah, and I kind of want to jump off on that because McDonald's is now synonymous with strip malls and the blight across America, and everywhere is the same, and consumerism is evil and all that stuff. And I wonder if that's maybe an avenue we can start talking about, because the film depicts the McDonald brothers as sort of like that in a way.
As like what? As
being against that kind of a thing where, you look at a street corner and there's a McDonald's and there's a Starbucks and there's a Chick-fil-A and there's a Barnes & Noble and there's a Joann Fabric and there's an Office Depot or whatever. Like you could be in Orlando or you could be in Albuquerque or you could be in Buffalo. Like you can't really tell except, there's palm trees or it's cold or whatever, but everywhere looks the same, like consumerist culture that everyone seems to be hating on all the time. Yeah, except that they were all for it. So were they against it or for it? I don't know. Because they were all for it when they wanted every single McDonald's to be exactly the same. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they also wanted their cake and to eat it too. Like they wanted to have a consistent product that a consumer, no matter where they ran across a restaurant, a McDonald's restaurant, they knew what they were getting. And I run into this myself when I'm out traveling for business, and I try not to do that very much. But I like coffee. I like to have it, but it's hit or miss if you go to a new area and you're not familiar with what's on offer. So I go to Starbucks. I don't like Starbucks particularly, but I know what I'm going to get, and it's just good enough to where it wins out most of the time when I'm out traveling. Right, because the time it would take for you to sample all the different varieties at different places, the little local shops, would just be too much. You just don't have the time or the effort or the money to, who cares? Go with, just good enough. And that's the same when people are traveling abroad. If you're an American tourist in India and you necessarily don't know what you're ordering in some places, you can walk into a KFC or a McDonald's and know what you're getting. There's a certain value in that, even if it's not the greatest thing in the world. Yeah, and it's not, an all-the-time thing for me. I do like to be adventurous at times, but if I'm in a hurry, running through an airport, I'm like, oh, man, I really need some coffee. Am I going to go to, High Flyers coffee stand in there, or am I going to go to the Starbucks? Yeah. I thought it was interesting when Kroc finally convinced them to franchise that he pulled the whole patriotism line, do it for America, because America needs this. Yeah. The whole red, white, and blue. Yeah, and then the religious stuff a little bit later, it was a little weird. Yeah, he turned it into a church, like this is family, this is church, and we're open 7 days a week. Yeah, I think that he was couching his argument in emotional terms at that point to convince these guys, because he had already met some of their resistance, like, oh, we've tried this before, it doesn't work, all that stuff. So he had to sell them on a vision. Right. He was a guy who he was listening to motivational stuff, and he'd worn his shoes thin, man. He'd been out there, and all of that preparation that he'd put into learning about this type of stuff, he knew he was onto something. So I think that he was kind of grasping at whatever he could do to get these guys on board.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. He was. If the first thing didn't work with them, he's going to come back and do it again. He had, and that was one of the main running themes throughout the movie, was tenacity. Or what was it? What was the word he used? Was it tenacity?
Persistence.
Persistence. Yeah, because like we've said many times, a great idea is super cheap. You can have a million great ideas, but you got to whole-ass that great idea and turn it into something. You can't half-ass a great idea. It doesn't turn out. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, that's a Ron Swanson quote.
Absolutely. It sure is.
Yeah, and now speaking of the Ron Swanson character, one thing I thought was interesting was he said, these fries are too crisp. They're 5% too crisp.
Yeah.
That's a made-up bullshit thing, man.
It sure is. Nobody says that. Nobody talks that way. You go, these are just a little too crisp, or I like them a little less crisp, but nobody says 5%.
But they were, fairly entrepreneurial guys, the brothers. Like, they were from New Hampshire, and things weren't working out for them there, so they moved west to get into movies in Hollywood and whatever, and started working for studios, driving trucks, and they saved up money to be able to buy their own theater, and then timing didn't work out for them, so the Depression wiped out their investment there, and then they stumbled upon the, people still need to eat idea, and they did some pretty innovative things to make it all work. So they were very industrious and entrepreneurial, but they were also, I think, they had a little bit of blinders on. Like they would have been good in a Dick's scale size operation. Like 4 or 5 restaurants close to each other where they can go in and check in on them, that kind of a thing. Yeah, absolutely. I think they just wanted to have their little piece of the pie and have it be according to their own artistic vision. They liked the idea maybe that Kroc was pushing, that, hey, we could make this an international, global, your vision, coast to coast sort of thing. But it seemed like these guys were just built differently. You're right. They would rather be just in that happy to have just these couple little restaurants and run them each perfectly, that sort of meticulous, control, as opposed to what was happening with what Kroc wanted to do. Right, and another thing I really liked that they did was they took very large menus, very complicated menus, and broke them down to, okay, what are the bulk of our sales? Oh, it's 3 items. That's 87% of our sales. Why do we have these other 27 items?
Yeah, that's just waste. I mean, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your storage space. You're wasting everything. You for the 13% of business you're bringing in, you're spending all this time having space to cook it and storage space to have it and delivery to get it there and buying and wasting time. Yeah, cut it out. Specialize.
Yeah, specialize and be the best at the 3 or 4 things that you're best at. It reminds me of, you go into a place like Panera Bread these days. Man, I walk in there and I'm like, what the fuck do I do? The menu is...
Like order a huge menu all across the wall or something like that.
Yeah, and it's not clear how it flows. Like, all right, is this like part of a combo? Do I do one thing and then pick something else? I've been there maybe a half a dozen times, and I still don't understand it.
Yeah, I've been there, I think, 3 times, and each time I'm confused. Each time it's like, where do I order? Oh, is this the line over here? Which one of these places? And then what do I order? I don't know. I see pictures and I see prices, but I don't know what I'm supposed to order. I don't know what I want. Yeah, it's real bad. I don't know how they've become as big as they have been without cleaning that shit up.
Yeah, that is weird to me. I think they do a lot better if they broke it down to, even a dozen items. Just make it make sense.
Yeah, and then give it some sort of an order and a flow and just a structure that someone walking in there for the first time doesn't have to talk to the lady at the cash register for 5 minutes trying to figure out what it is they make and what it is that you can order, and I don't know. Maybe they just made me feel stupid, but I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And then the food wasn't even that good, so I was like, never mind.
Yeah, and it was like $10.
Yeah, it was overpriced, and it didn't get that much, and it had decent atmosphere. I thought that was the best thing about that place.
Yeah, the free Wi-Fi.
There you go.
One other thing I wanted to mention with the guys being entrepreneurial and carving the restaurant in half and getting it to the right place. The best line in the movie, he says, "That's some pure dick magic right there." And I just wanted to say, boom, phrasing.
Oh, yeah. That just goes by, and it's not even referenced or even not even a weird look by anybody. It's just let's go, and it's really good. Pure dick magic.
All right, so let's get to, I know we're dragging on here, but the one thing that really stood out to me was that Ray, because of the contract that he signed with these guys, even though he was hustling and opening restaurants and getting people on board and super busy and there's success happening and there's money being made, he's broke.
Yeah, that's another way of not having people look at it, not really looking and thinking through what your business model is. I think every time you start a business, you really have to, when you go in to get a loan, you lay out what your business model is. How are you going to make money? And I think that's one thing that he didn't think too much through. He thought that, he's got this amazing product, and the money is just going to come because we're going to be selling so many burgers and fries. And it's not till he has some happenstance meeting, and I don't know if that's actually how it happened in real life, but if it was, that was like the thing that turned it from this really good idea into a real business, is when he meets the guy that tells him that he's not in the burger business, he's in the real estate business. And that's like that light bulb moment where it goes from a good idea to a great idea.
Right, and I can't imagine, it makes sense to me that Kroc wouldn't have seen that. He was focused on hustling and throwing effort at it and running restaurants and getting more restaurants and finding the right people to run them. He had tried his country club friends who had a bunch of extra money just laying around and wanted to invest in something passively, and those places kind of ran to shit. And then he happened into this Jewish Bible salesman, and he's like, wait a minute. This guy's hungry, right? He's out there wearing his shoes out, willing to do what it takes to make a buck, so he knew that he needed to find some people who were scrappers like him.
Yeah, and that's one of the parts of the movie that brings a tear to my eye almost every time. I'm a sucker for somebody having, a dream and then having somebody support them in that dream. So there's like a line where he's got some young franchisee couple sitting in, his desk, and they're signing some papers. And the guy's like, okay, I think we can do this. We're going to do something. I'm signing this. And the wife's like, that's right, honey, I believe in you. And that just gets me every time. That's just like, oh, man, to have a partner that will believe in you and will support you in this entrepreneurial vision that you have and in this endeavor. And then there's, the couple where, like, he's in the kitchen and she's outside, handing out, like, lollipops. And I was just like, oh, man, getting so emotional. It's just beautiful. And even Kroc is like, man, this is just beautiful. These people that are changing their lives, and, they're a team, and they're working it out, and they're doing it. It's just beautiful. I just love it.
All right, ladies, you heard it here. This is Robert's dating service video. Looking for a lady who's going to support him in his entrepreneurial efforts.
Anytime you've got somebody that loves somebody so much and they believe in them, to that level that, yes, I'm on board this train. We're going to make this work. We're going to be a team, and we're going to succeed in life. How can you not, just love that? That's wonderful.
That's some pure dick magic right there, Robert.
You know it, buddy.
All right, so let's get back to the movie. So the land guy is the guy who figured it out, that the way you make money and gain control over the franchisees so that they do what you basically, they buy into the system, right, is you get into this, you lease the land to them. So you buy the land, you sell them a franchise, and they have to buy or they have to lease the property from you. And if they don't comply with the terms of the franchisee agreement, you don't renew the lease, or you don't give them another lease, for a second restaurant or a third restaurant. And that's brilliant, man. And it also gave him a consistent income stream where he was getting monthly payments from every restaurant now, paying for the lease on the land, so then he could go out and find more land. And he was dictating where the restaurants were going to go, which was a different model from the previous model, which was someone wants to sign up for a franchise and they find a place and they pick it out, and it could be the wrong part of town, could be whatever. So this land deal was really a stroke of genius, and it's another thing of the specialization, right? It's something that Kroc didn't see, but somebody who was familiar with that concept or how that kind of thing worked stumbled into his life and was able to take it to that next level.
Yeah, you get part of genius is finding other specialized, intelligent people that know their shit. So you don't have to be an expert in everything. In fact, you probably don't even want to be an expert in everything because you can't be. But what you do want is you want experts around you in each of those individual areas of expertise. So he was able to, either by luck or by whatever, skill, or just by having his name and being successful, he attracted people with those skills to him, or he hired them, and they were able to, take take the business to new heights for sure that he couldn't have done alone, and definitely the McDonald brothers couldn't have done alone.
Yeah, exactly. And they were, they had they wanted to maintain control, right? Like letting go was what was going to let this thing fly, and it's something I struggle with, where I want to be competently good at so many different things that you do the jack of all trades deal, and you're not excellent at any particular thing. And part of that is because you don't trust anyone else to do it. Like you have that vision, you want to be the one doing it, or you think that maybe it would take too much effort to teach someone how to do it your way, and so you just keep that thing on your plate. And I think that really does hold a lot of people back. If you can find a way to identify what you're best at and focus your efforts on being even better at that thing that you have a natural aptitude for, then outsource the rest, man. Like, know enough about those other things to know you're not getting screwed over, but find someone who specializes in those things to take care of your lawn for you, or do some of the, more tedious business tasks for you, right? Like a lawyer can hire a secretary for $20, $30 an hour to type up the stuff, or he can type it himself. And even if he's a better typist, even though he might be better, it's going to cost him whatever he could have earned otherwise instead of typing, right? So he's doing a $20 job when he could be doing a $500 job.
Yeah, it's about having respect for your own time, and recognizing that your time is more valuable, and that you could easily just hire somebody to do this menial job for this little amount while you're doing bigger and better things. It's like Larry Bird paving his own driveway and throwing his back out when he could have just hired somebody to do it.
Yeah, well said. Well, let's keep moving in this movie, because this is going to be one of our longer episodes at this point.
All right. So, you really got the sense in the movie that the McDonald brothers were just like an albatross around his neck, just weighing him down. He wanted to innovate and move on and progress, but he was stuck to the terms of that contract. And eventually he just breaks the contract without actually breaking the contract. And he knew that the McDonald brothers would be able to, if they sued him, they would win. But he was like, well, I got money now, and I can just bury you in legal fees. And I thought that was some pretty shady shit, where he was just, well, I'm just going to use the brute force of violence and government to, get what I want, instead of, honestly negotiating.
Yeah, I agree. There was some shadiness to it, but any contract, especially one that's no longer servicing both parties, there are clauses for non-performance and getting out of them, and he was more than willing to pay them. He even offered a blank check to buy them out, and so I'm a little bit torn on it, because they were holding him back for sure.
They were, but if he wants out of the contract, then he has to get out of the contract fairly, like non-performance. But then there are consequences to that. I thought where he would just, it's true. I totally agree with him that he was doing what he thought was right, in the sense that he wanted to innovate and save people money and, go to the powdered shake thing, and they had a different vision. So, at that point, you guys should just, part ways. But how he did it, where he was just, like, threatening them with legal fees and whatnot, I thought was some, pretty shady crap. Was it aggression? Probably not. I don't know the exact terms of the contract. We'd have to actually look at the contract that they actually had, and there's no way to do that. So we don't know. All we can go is what we see in the movie.
Right, though he was saying that they would have had a case to use the force of government against him, and he would have defended himself enough to where they couldn't have sustained the costs.
Yes, but I took that as meaning that they were right, and he was in the wrong. But he had the money to draw it out and make it onerous for them. Because at one point he's like, you guys are local. I'm national. You can't beat me, even though you're right? I don't know how you could defend that.
Yeah, that's part of him being a dick, but I think that he was doing the right move business-wise. He was in an untenable situation where he wasn't going to be able to do the expansions and the improvements that were necessary to grow the business with them around his neck.
Sure, but you're not guaranteed business growth.
No, he wanted more, and there's no guarantee of that, but he was in an unhappy relationship and he wanted out.
Yes, but he didn't just want out. He wanted the business. He wanted their business. It's tough to talk about this movie in this, without really understanding the entire intricacies of the contract and what they were beholden to and whatnot. From what I understood in the contract, he had 1.9% of the profit or something like that, or was it? I forget what it was.
Yeah, 1.5 or 1.9. But that was back
Yeah,
when
and then the
he was-
brothers had like 0.5%, something like that.
and I guess the rest of it was all going to the franchisees or something but whatever it was, it wasn't very much because he was broke before he stumbled upon this land thing.
Right.
I mean, perhaps at scale, like they say at the end, that the 0.5% that they negotiated on a handshake deal would have been worth $100 million a year. I guess at scale, those percentages are significant. But back when it was a half dozen restaurants or whatever, 15-cent burgers, half dozen restaurants, 1.5%, 1.9%, whatever, isn't a ton of money.
Right. But now that it's massively global and they feed like 1% of the world's population every day or something like that. Well, let's talk about unless you got more notes. I'm sure you do probably, but if you want, I mean, do you have anything to talk about before we talk about the 1% handshake and the buying out and that sort of thing?
Well, a whole bunch of stuff happens in the movie. He is married, but somewhat unhappily, to a woman who doesn't share the same drive as him, and so he's growing distant from her, and he comes across this also ambitious person who happens to be married to one of the restaurateurs in Minnesota, and she had come up with that milkshake idea, and he thought that was brilliant. So he ends up divorcing his wife and marrying her. Not that that's like super important to the concepts we're talking about, but we're just moving the story
No, but
along.
I mean, it does kind of show that he's going after a married woman. I mean, it just plays to his character somewhat.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
For me, it does. I mean, I generally would frown upon anybody making moves on a married woman.
Especially right in front of the husband.
Yeah, I mean, it's ballsy. Anyway, I mean, the heart wants what it wants. I'm not going to say that he's a piece of shit for falling in love with a married woman, but being a homewrecker doesn't earn you points in my book. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, well said. Well, let's get to the 1% deal here, or 0.5%, whatever it was.
It was a 1% in perpetuity, 1% profits in perpetuity to the McDonald's children or the grandchildren. And it was a handshake deal because Kroc lied, as far as I took it to be a complete lie. He's talking totally out of his ass when he said, like, yeah, my investors, they won't deal with it. It's a deal breaker. Well, then it's a deal breaker. But they accepted it, and then Kroc reneges on it. He says, well, you can't prove it, so I'm never going to pay you. And that just shows him to be a piece of shit.
Yeah, I do agree. That was rather dishonest. I think that they should have known him by then. I mean, and in the movie, they sort of allude to it like they know they're not getting that money. They keep saying they want it, but they kind of know it's not going to happen.
I think, well, maybe. They seem to be either like naive rubes or, maybe resigned to their fate. I mean, they do talk about how, we'll never beat this guy. We need to just take the money because we don't have it in us to fight this guy on the level that he's prepared to go. But, I mean, when you make the deal for 1% perpetuity, I mean, you're only as good as your word. If he's going to make a verbal contract like that and then not follow through on it, then that entire contract is invalid, and it should all be to those McDonald brother guys. Sorry.
Yeah, in my opinion, he should have stuck to the deal, and they should have insisted that it be in the written portion and all of that. Though, from a certain perspective, I'm like, okay, what are the McDonald brothers really bringing to this, Like, they had... Yeah, the name.
I mean, what does that even matter? It's
right.
a deal.
Well, the name is interesting because in the movie they make it sound like the name was the big thing that he wanted because Kroc's like, not a good name for a restaurant. But there's a million names that you could just make up a name that has the same whatever feeling he was getting out of McDonald's. That seemed weird.
He still could have, right, and he still could have gone off and named something McDonald's. And they don't have the trademark on McDonald's. Just because it happens to be their last name. I mean, a lot of people have the last name McDonald. Yeah,
so that was a little bit weird, and I think that the wanting the name and having them change their store once the deal, once they separated, was a vindictive dick move type thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah, he was bitter about whatever, even though he's totally screwing them over. But he was probably indignant about even having to go to the level that he did, which I think makes the movie paint him as very negative in my eyes. I mean, I was all for him on his entrepreneurial whatever, and even when he was giving speeches with a yarmulke on his head and doing all the different bullshit to all the different people, pandering to different crowds like he was a politician. I was like, fine, do what you got to do, even though you're being dishonest. You're portraying yourself as different than you actually are. Fine, whatever. But when you make a deal and you make a contract and then you don't live up to that, I mean, especially it's like 1%. You're mega rich. You're giving like billions of dollars to NP fucking R. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I agree.
Don't do the deal if you're not happy with it. Negotiate a better deal where you don't give 1% away. But don't say you're going to do something and not do something.
I'll agree. Circle gets the square.
All right.
So I think we sort of ham-fisted our way through the movie here. Should we do a final summary and our rating?
All right, so it's the story of a driven guy and two genius brothers that had a vision that, I mean, they had a rocky relationship. And I think it's a really good portrait of a complicated dude. I don't think he was necessarily a very moral man, but maybe he kind of was. I mean, he definitely had, I think he was right about persistence, that's for damn sure. Stick with it. Not necessarily like stay on board the Titanic as it's sinking, but if you got a good idea, it's better to push through and work that idea to its fullest than to have a whole bunch of different ideas that you're kind of working on a little bit at a time. For me, this is a big black and gold movie. I think this is a fantastic film. It really portrays the entrepreneurial spirit, and I don't think it's necessarily what would necessarily happen in like an ANCAP kind of a world. I think the players would have slightly different mindsets at least. What a great movie just about entrepreneurs and business and dealing with people and that sort of thing. Because we are all just humans, right? We're all works in progress. We're all trying to succeed in this world, and here's a success story. And he wasn't a perfect person, and I think he certainly could have afforded to be a better person, especially on that last deal. I think it's a great portrait of a complex situation and a complex character. So a big thumbs up for me.
All right, well said. I'm also going to go with a super black and gold. This is a movie that I feel like was almost perfect for us to analyze. I mean, there's so many little economic things and moral questions and whatnot, and I know we meandered quite a bit, but I think it was well worth it. We had some pretty good discussion, even in what might become pre-show. I'm not sure if I'm going to cut some of that stuff out or not. But there's a quote in this movie where he says, "Fortune favors the bold." And I think another relevant quote that they could have just as easily have said is that luck finds the prepared. And that's what this guy was doing, Kroc. You know, he had been around enough to know when he stumbled upon something good. And so that's one of the things that you know, kind of makes it a perfect movie for us. I mean, yeah, Kroc was kind of a dick, but he was driven. He was persistent. And the Mick brothers, I mean, they were very technically efficient engineering types, super smart guys. They solved many problems. They were driven in their own scale, but it was just smaller than the vision that Kroc had. And I think that it goes back to that division of labor and specialization, and that without these different specializations coming together, we wouldn't have McDonald's as we have it today. Like you and I wouldn't have grown up eating there on school bus trips and whatnot. You know, it's one of those things that kind of by magic of the market was able to spring into existence, and no one individual could have done it all by themselves. You know, it took the guy who figured out the land stuff to get the franchise under control and to bring in the cash flow. And it made me wonder if this kind of arrangement would even be permitted today. Like if you went and said, okay, I'm going to start a business where once you sign this contract, you are required to buy this other service or rent this land from me. It sounds like it would be like something the government would not permit anymore. I don't know, though.
Yeah, due to like monopoly rules or something. I mean, in a world where Microsoft can't put their own browser on their own operating system, or at least in the EU they couldn't, or they got big fines or something like that for monopoly. Right, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not.
And AT&T is in shit right now for trying to buy time or something. They're saying, well, we got to spin off AOL. I mean, like AOL's a thing anymore. But yeah, it's just ridiculous stuff. And so yeah, I wonder if this kind of model, if it didn't already exist, if it could spring forth today. I mean, I guess technology and innovation always outpaces government. Government's always trying to catch up and regulate things after they've kind of become a thing. I mean, you see that with the net neutrality stuff that everyone's up in arms about these days, because I guess it was announced today that the FCC is going to recommend to repeal the net neutrality controls, and I applaud that. It's like one of the only things I can say that government's being right about. And there's all sorts of people coming at me saying I'm a shill for big business and saying that I'm an idiot and I don't understand that net neutrality means less government control. But no, sorry, buddy. If you're going to regulate something as a utility and not permit the owners of the property to determine the prices that they're willing to sell their services for, that, my friend, is more government control.
Yep. Yeah, it's all going through the lefty media, especially like the Gawkers. They got some really terrible websites, or really terrible articles out just today. Really, it's like one of them claims to be like Nostradamus because he keeps saying like, and then this might happen, and that's going to happen, and this is probably going to happen, and then this is going to be really bad, and that is like, well, I understand you're couching your argument in maybes and probablys and could be's, but the whole article reads like just massive doom and gloom is going to happen now that there might just be a little bit of freedom coming out. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, people are afraid of freedom. I don't know why, and they're afraid of the market. I don't know why.
Yeah, the market which serves, there's just bending over backward to satisfy every desire.
Yeah,
it's so scary.
These people, man, I hope at some point they figure it out because they are certainly vociferous about their opinions, but they lack any knowledge of economics. And that was actually something I pointed out to one of the guys I was debating on Twitter today. I brought up the economic argument. He's like, what does that have to do with anything? I'm like, everything, man.
Everything.
It's the whole fucking point.
Yep.
Oh, man. Anyway, back to my summary review of the movie. You know, Kroc was the guy who, through trial and error and persistence, figured it out, and that's what you need, man. You need that kind of drive and specialization to make something work. So keep plugging away. That's my suggestion for everyone. Find something you're really good at and become the best at it.
Well said. Yeah, this is a very specialized planet where division of labor is everything. And, yeah, you don't get Steve Jobs if he also has to mow his own lawn and rake the leaves and pave his own driveway and build his own house and all that. He can put his specialized knowledge to developing the latest iPhone instead of having to do everything else, which is another argument against like anarcho-primitivism and all these people that want to get back to the old hunter-gatherer societies. I mean, it's not a huge movement, and I understand, a little bit of a back to the land movement for people yearning that are in the middle of the rat race. I understand that, but you just don't make these arguments on your iPhones, please. Posting to Facebook about how we all need to get back to the land, please.
And speaking of your iPhones, the Tom Woods Liberty Classroom now has an iPhone app and perhaps even an Android one. So if you do end up picking it up during this Black Friday weekend where you get the best prices of the year, save a bunch of smackers on it, and also get bonuses from us like the Rothbard repository and some readit4.me bonuses, check it out at actualanarchy.com/Liberty Classroom for all that good stuff. And also, for Cyber Monday coming up tomorrow, do click on the Amazon links on our page and then go and buy something nice for your kids or for your wife or husband or significant other, maybe one of these Everlast Rocket books. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, if you're right-handed, I guess, not if you're left-handed. Buy something else. And
but thanks for listening, everybody. It's been great. It's been grand. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving, right?
Right. Wink, wink. Hasn't happened yet, but by the time you hear this, it has.
Yes.
We hope it was good. And this is episode 52 of the Actual Anarchy podcast. Can be found at actualanarchy.com/52. So thank you guys very much for joining us. I do appreciate you. I want to say thank you. We did our Thanksgiving special previously, and I don't know if I said thank you to our audience. So thank you for being our audience. Thank you for listening to us, and thank you for your support. We got Patreon and all that other good stuff. Check it out. We'll keep plugging away, and hopefully you keep listening.
Peace out, Cub Scout. The Chipmunks. CHIPMUNK. We're the Chipmunks. Guaranteed to brighten your day. Do 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 do.